Israeli forces stepped up airstrikes around Tehran and the nearby city of Karaj, striking fuel depots, which Israel claims Iran is using to operate military bases and produce weapons, spewing thick black clouds of smoke over the capital. Iran says more than 1,300 people have been killed over the last week. Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the UAE and Bahrain have reported Iranian drones have continued to hit their territories in the last 24 hours. At least 14 people have been killed in the Gulf. Bahrain says one of its desalination plants was hit, a vital part of its infrastructure, but water supplies have not been disrupted. This may be in response to an attack yesterday on an Iranian freshwater desalination plant on Qeshm Island, which Iran said had come from a Gulf state and had promised there would be consequences. Israel has hit a hotel in central Beirut, reportedly killing 4 commanders of the Quds Force, a branch of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. And Israel says 2 of its soldiers have died in southern Lebanon, while 6 people have been wounded in Tel Aviv after a cluster bomb was launched from Iran. With the latest, here's our chief correspondent, Alex Thompson.
Tehran overnight, oil storage depots around the city, the focus of American and Israeli air assault. They destroyed it, he says. This is Shahron in northwestern Tehran. A blast wave shoots fireballs along a street. Run for it, he yells. President Trump keeps giving different reasons for attacking Iran, but this is a front seat view of the war he started. Having destroyed Iranian air defenses, he and Israel can and are methodically working their way through a target list of dismantling a state. Iran's regime continuing to make the massive mistake of banning international media, including this program, which means the picture you're getting is minimal. So, from dawn, the smog of war. We contacted one resident still in the city. For her safety, this is not her voice.
The situation in Tehran is extremely dire. The air has become heavily polluted. This morning, my friend went to the city center for work and said that when it rained, our faces felt oily and everything turned black. The sky over the city was completely dark in the morning. Many people are trying to leave the city because they're constantly bombing. It's so terrible.
Tehran, not the only city hit by any means.
Khorramabad. It's March the 8th, 5:30 p.m. Oh God, they have attacked everywhere. Everywhere.
Iran's foreign ministry said the attacks on oil depots were a crime against humanity, chemical warfare, and said the environmental and human catastrophe would not be limited to Iran's borders. While the war continues, Iran's depleted leadership is nearing a decision on who will take over from Ali Khamanei as the new supreme leader.
We reached a firm decision by majority of members. However, under these difficult circumstances, there are also obstacles, and the process must be carried out with sufficient care so it will not be subject to dispute.
Yet, obstacles notwithstanding, it is expected that this man, Mojtaba Khamenei, son of Ali Khamenei, will become the new supreme leader. Just yesterday, Iran's president was apologizing for attacking Gulf states. He said it would end if they played no part in helping the American and Israeli assault on Iran. But today, a tower block in Kuwait was hit and on fire after an Iranian drone strike. The building, the headquarters of the state's social security organization. Kuwait said tonight it has intercepted 234 missiles and 422 drones fired from Iran in 8 days of war. Back in Iran, Khorramabad today, near a military base. US Central Command tonight accusing Tehran of using civilian areas to fire missiles. We can't verify that, but it sounds like preparing world opinion for large numbers of civilian casualties to come.
Well, joining me now from Geneva is the director of Crisis Group's Iran project, Ali Vyas. So various clerical figures in Iran are saying a decision has been reached on the supreme leader, and there's growing speculation it will be Khamenei's son. But whoever it is, will they carry his authority and will they be in charge?
It's very unlikely that they would be able to have as much authority as Ayatollah Khamenei had after being on the throne for nearly 4 decades. So whoever comes in would be highly reliant on the Revolutionary Guards, who's running the country right now and is running the war effort. And so my prediction is that the next leader is not going to be supreme.
So what does that mean for how decisions are taken then? Who's calling the shots?
Well, I think there will be more or less continuity to what we have right now, which is that the two individuals where the power has gravitated towards, Ali Larijani, the National Security Advisor, and Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, the Speaker of Parliament, they're going to continue what they're doing right now, which is a division of labor. Larijani is running the day-to-day affairs of the state and also the strategic direction of the country. And Ghalibaf is more responsible for the war effort. Both of them are former commanders of the Revolutionary Guards, and both of them are statesmen with a long experience of governance. And I think if the new supreme leader comes in, given the fact that he's also very much likely to be a target for Israel, he's going to be in a bunker and he's not really going to be that present. So the status quo will continue for the foreseeable future.
I mean, yesterday Trump said he didn't know who Larijani was. And the rhetoric on both sides seems to be getting more heated. Should we take that on face value, or is there still a chance of this being diffused?
It's very hard to be optimistic about any exit ramps because both sides seem to believe that they can force the other to blink first. At this point, the Iranians have paced themselves out so that they can get into a war of attrition. They believe the global economic pressure, the mounting pressure on the energy markets and their neighbors in the Gulf, this is all going to accumulate in a way that after 2 weeks or so, President Trump would want to have an exit ramp. And if the regime is still standing in Iran, that is a victory for them. And the other way around, President Trump seems to be under the impression that he is significantly degrading Iran's retaliatory capacity, and now by targeting infrastructure, will be able to weaken the regime to the extent that it would collapse. And so under these circumstances, it's hard to be optimistic about either side taking a step back.
Well, on infrastructure, I mean, they're hitting oil depots and Iran is threatening to retaliate. There's also been an exchange of fire on desalination plants, which provides fresh water. What's the significance of that?
Look, in this region, there are two very important things, water and oil. And if you start going after those resources, then this war would escalate very quickly. Iranians can target desalination plants in Israel and throughout the region, but they're also vulnerable to the same kind of attacks. And as soon as oil infrastructure is hit, then the global energy markets will go into a shock, because what we have seen so far, it's primarily affecting the shipments of energy out of the region, not necessarily the production. Some countries have slowed down production, but infrastructure has not been damaged in a way that it would take months, if not years, to recover. If we enter into that category, we're basically going to end up with a scorched earth at the end of this crisis.
Now, what about the possibility of future civilian casualties? The US command have issued a warning to Iranians saying the military is using you as human shields, effectively, saying they are firing drones and missiles from highly populated areas, but telling people to stay in their homes. That doesn't bode well for what happens if they start targeting those missile sites in populated areas.
Absolutely. And look, there's a lot of really terrible parallel with same lines of arguments being used in Gaza. Iran is a country of 92 million. There are not a lot of shelters for the population. And with this line of arguments, I'm afraid the U.S. would end up killing too many civilians, which, whatever the outcome the U.S. is able to achieve, is going to have a generational impact. Look, there is a straight line between the 1953 coup, in which the U.S. took part along with the U.K., and the 1979 revolution, which, from the perspective of the Iranians, was revenge for what the U.S. did to them in 1953. And so, if now the U.S. commits significant crimes against the Iranian people, unarmed Iranian people, I think this will come back to haunt the U.S. for years to come.
Ali Vaez, thank you very much for your time. Well, in another change of heart, President Trump has now insisted he doesn't want Kurdish fighters in Iraq to cross into Iran, after previously suggesting he would support their involvement. Speaking on Air Force One, Mr. Trump told reporters the war was complicated enough as it is. In the last few minutes, the Ministry of Defence said UK forces successfully engaged a one-way drone fired from Iran towards Iraq last night. From Iraqi Kurdistan, our Foreign Affairs correspondent Porrick O'Brien reports.
Since the war started just over a week ago, there have been almost 200 drone and missile attacks on the Iraqi Kurdistan region. Our team heard the explosions of some of the 11 strikes last night in and around the city of Khamanei, where we're staying. As a result of yesterday's attacks, 2 people were killed, including a Peshmerga soldier. Iran and its proxies in Iraq are sending a message to Iranian Kurdish fighting groups based here. If you attempt to open up a new front in this war with support from the US and Israel, there will be hell to pay. Most strikes are aimed at the bases of those groups, but last night a building next to the Titanic Hotel, Soleimani, was hit. An Al Jazeera reporter was live at the time. Thankfully, no one was hurt. A telephone conversation at the beginning of the week between Donald Trump and Iranian Kurdish groups sparked furious speculation that an incursion was about to be mounted by those Kurds into Iran from here, Iraqi Kurdistan. Then on Thursday, Israeli and American outlets started reporting that that incursion had actually started. That turned out not to be true. Then yesterday, Donald Trump on Air Force One said, actually, forget about Kurdish involvement, that's all too complicated.
We don't want to make the war any more complex than it already is. No.
You've ruled that out?
We don't want, I have ruled it out. I don't want the Kurds going in. I don't want to see the Kurds get hurt, get killed. We've had a good relation. They're willing to go in, but I've told them I don't want them to go in.
There may come a time when Iranian Kurds attack, but we've spoken to the leadership of many of these groups and they're biding their time. Unlikely to make their move unless the regime in Iran is in complete, irrecoverable freefall.
Well, there has been more fighting in southern Lebanon between Israel and Hezbollah. Our international editor, Lindsay Hilson, joins us from Beirut. Lindsay.
Krishnan, this was the day that the war came to central Beirut. There was an Israeli drone strike on a hotel down the Corniche, the Ramada Hotel. It seems that they took out very precisely a corner suite on the 4th floor. Now, what the Israelis are saying is that they killed 4 Al-Quds Force commanders who were in that room. That means Iranians from the Revolutionary Guard. Now, one assumes that the hotel didn't know who they were hosting. One assumes that they were there in some other capacity and not saying that they were Iranians. So it indicates that the intelligence the Israelis have as they are hunting down Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps who are commanding and working with Hezbollah here in Lebanon.
And what's going on in the south of Lebanon?
Well, in the south, we're seeing enormous numbers of airstrikes. And the amount of rubble and the destruction there is a contrast to that precise strike that we saw here in Beirut. People are losing their homes. Israel has told all the civilian inhabitants of southern Lebanon that they must leave. If they ever get back, goodness knows what they're going to find there. Their homes are likely to have been completely destroyed. There is also fighting going on. The Israelis are making incursions in their tanks and their armored vehicles 2 Israeli soldiers are said to have been killed today by an anti-tank missile, presumably fired by Hezbollah. Now, I was talking to a senior Lebanese politician today. He was saying, we do not want to be part of this war. Hezbollah and Israel are forcing us into it. This is not our war, and this is a disaster for the Lebanese government and the Lebanese people.
Lindsay Hilsum in Beirut. Well, in London, Number 10 says Sir Keir Starmer spoke to President Trump this afternoon, adding that the two discussed military cooperation between the UK and the US over the use of RAF bases for what the statement described as collective self-defence. Earlier, Mr Trump doubled down on his criticism of the PM's response to the conflict. The Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, insisted Sir Keir was standing up for British interests. Vincent McAviney reports.
The flagship of the Royal Navy, HMS Prince of Wales, docked in Portsmouth. Beneath the tents on deck, crews are reportedly preparing the aircraft carrier for potential sudden deployment. She'd be joining HMS Dragon when the destroyer finally departs for the Mediterranean this week. But the government still won't confirm whether the Prince of Wales, which would require escorting from support vessels and a submarine, will set sail, attracting criticism from across the Atlantic, with President Trump posting overnight, "The United Kingdom, our once great ally, maybe the greatest of them all, is finally giving serious thought to sending 2 aircraft carriers to the Middle East. That's okay, Prime Minister Starmer. We don't need them any longer, but we will remember, we don't need people that join wars after we've already won."
The British government has offered use of some bases now.
On Air Force One, Trump doubled down.
We don't need them. It's not the right time. It would have been nice to have had them 2 weeks ago, but the response I put out, I think, says it very well for you.
An unsurprising broadside from Trump, but closer to home, criticism of the Prime Minister too from his predecessor, Tony Blair, reportedly telling a private lunch event on Friday that Keir Starmer should have backed America from the very beginning and let them use British air bases. The Foreign Secretary, who served in Tony Blair's government during the Iraq War, defended Starmer from his criticisms.
It is important to learn lessons from what went wrong in Iraq and to recognise whether that is about ensuring that the purpose for any action that the UK becomes a part of, and just recognising that all of our decisions need to be about what is right for British citizens and in the UK's national interest.
This afternoon, for the first time since the start of the war, the President and the Prime Minister spoke on the phone, discussing American usage of RAF bases, but there was reportedly no word on naval support. Criticised by some for not acting quickly enough this week, praised by others for not simply following America's lead into an open-ended conflict. Starmer's government has seemed particularly cautious, given the spectre of Iraq over their party. The Prime Minister, who had previously been perceived as a Trump whisperer, is now experiencing the turbulence his erratic outbursts can cause as he tries to balance British interests with the special relationship.
Well, earlier I spoke to the UK's former National Security Advisor, Lord Peter Ricketts, and I began by asking him if the British and American relationship was changing substantially.
I don't think we should overreact to throwaway remarks from the president, even if there are several of them. I mean, the special relationship can't mean that Britain just follows blindly whatever the American president decides to do at any particular moment.
And of course, the man you used to work for, Tony Blair, has made it very clear, recently on Channel 4, in fact, that when it comes to this relationship, they are your closest security partner, and you just have to be there for them when they ask for your cooperation, and Keir Starmer didn't do that.
Well, I'm a bit surprised to hear Tony Blair say that. I mean, he was there for George Bush with the Iraq War. No one now remembers his act of loyalty to the Americans. Everyone remembers that he took Britain into a war on, shall we say, a very doubtful legal basis, with all the consequences we know, the enormous suffering and loss of life that went on for years in Iraq. So in a way, I think Blair's experience shows what I'm arguing, that Britain needs to stop and think. And if you look at it the other way round, when it's Britain's top priority, for example, in helping Ukraine against Russia, Donald Trump didn't spend much time worrying about that when he was organising summits with Putin. So, no, I think we have to keep our nerve, keep calm, keep explaining to the Americans what we are doing, and get them to start thinking about how this ends, because in their own interest, they need an Iran for the future, which can contribute to stability in the Middle East and not collapse into chaos and infighting and lead to another generation of instability.
A lot of commentators have complained that the strategy seems to be being made up as they go along. I mean, would it be sensible to announce a strategy anyway?
Yes, it certainly would. It would have been sensible to announce a strategy when you started the conflict. Having an agenda that leads us out of this war towards a more stable Middle East seems to now to be very urgent. I don't yet see that that is in American thinking, as they are completely obsessed with the day-to-day war effort.
There's some speculation that this might become more about oil and that the Americans might seize Iranian oil facilities.
First of all, I think the war is already, in a way, about oil because of the closure of the Hormuz Straits, because of the spiking in energy prices and gas prices around the world. Iran has, in effect, created a kind of asymmetric attack by going after Gulf oil facilities and choking off export of oil. I mean, that would be a massive risk for the Americans to take. Again, the lessons of Iraq are clear for all to see. But I would absolutely not advocate an American invasion of Iran to occupy their oil fields.
Do you think there's a double standard in the way the United States defends Israel and the way it defends Ukraine?
Yes, completely. I really do. And it's very shocking to see how many Patriot air defense missiles have been fired off by the Gulf countries in 3 or 4 days, more than the Ukrainians have had in 4 years. And they got the whole balance between Zelensky and Putin wrong. Now they see Putin supplying intelligence to Iran on US forces in the region, we're told, and we see Zelensky offering anti-drone technology to the Gulf countries. So finally, it's clear, I think, who America's allies is in that war and who America's adversary is, and they've got that completely wrong from day one on Ukraine.
Peter Ricketts, thank you very much.
Thank you.